So we've got all the motor wires on now, and they're looking pretty good. As you can see, they're wired diagonally. As I said, it's kind of overlapping each other. They're not going to get in the way of anything, as opposed to the other way that I mentioned. You've got to be a little bit careful. You can see I've put my receiver back in here with all the wires on, and I've put some heat shrink on that. So I've heat shrunk it on, put some double-sided tape underneath, just stuck him on there. And remember I said that the antenna goes underneath. So things you've got to be a bit careful of are if you went and wired up all of your motors first and then you had to do something like this and get this underneath, that could be a bit tricky. I actually forgot. Unfortunately, I remembered just after the first one, and so I could lift this side up and get it in quite easily. But just, you know, preparation is everything, and layout is very important as well. You know, remember where you're putting stuff, and just be prepared. So what we're going to do next is we are going to have a look at these. We've got the camera wire over here. So I've just stripped off these wires from the right side of the camera. We don't need that. That's for camera control, which we can do in our OSD. That's, I don't know, that's for IRC tramp or something like that. We basically need just the power camera and ground. So we're going to snip that off. So we can now pretty much go and have a look at our flight controller as it is. So arrow facing forwards is what you want. I mean, the USB might be on another side. They're usually on the right side with the flight controller facing forward. Pop him on there so we can start seeing where things are going to go. So all we're going to do now is basically that's going to go to over there, these 4 ports over here. Remember I said I'll put a little diagram up there. Ground, power, RX and TX like that, or channel 1 and channel 2. So we'll have a look at that in a minute. We'll go and prepare our pads with our flux, poke the holes through, snip the wires, and we'll get that done. Then we will probably just wire up the camera to these ports over here. Fairly straightforward. And then lastly, we will go and wire up our ESC pads, which go over to this side here. So they go to these pads over here. So we've got to have the, you know, obviously the right length of wire for all of this stuff. So I'll go and prepare snip off some length, and I'll see you back here to tin up these wires. So we've cut the wires to length, just bearing in mind that you need to have a bit of a twist. So as I say, that's going to there, that's going to there, and that's just going from the camera. So that's going to be pretty short. Tin up your wires, as I said before. Just going to pump that up a little bit more to 360. 350 is okay, but one thing to note is just make sure you don't have your wires too long, but about, yeah, not more than a couple of mil. Definitely not more than a couple of mil, otherwise they're going to be too big for the actual pad. Here's another little trick, is to use your blue tack to use as a shield. So you really don't need much. We've been through the soldering tutorial. You know about tinning up your wires now. Let's do our camera first. You can do this, you know, depending on which way you want to do it. Obviously, bear in mind which way your wires are going. So we're going that way for that. We're going that way for that. We'll go inwards, never go outwards where you can avoid it, because that is more susceptible to damage. Always try and go from the inside. But because that's protected here, it's not a problem. So that'll go from the, that receiver's going to go from the inside there. So we've got 5 volt ground and camera. You might be starting to get the picture of how nice and easy this is. So we'll go through like we said before, we are going to have to turn that around. So that's your 5 volt. Then you've got your ground. There we go. Yep. So I don't know if you can see that. That's in focus. 2 nice shiny joints there. And there's a little bit of exposed wire there, which we could actually tidy up, I think, because the problem with doing this is that it does sometimes kind of desolder from the other side, but you don't want frayed wire. See, that's okay. See, that's got that power wire's got nothing, whereas that had a little bit exposed, but that's nice and strengthened with that bit of solder now. So that's the camera, and we can twist this up afterwards, that's all right. And there we go. I think that's enough. So that's 3 nice wires going there, so we can twist him up. Acts as a shield, especially for your VTX. Very important, and actually for the camera and the VTX. So we're going to go again, look at our wiring diagram. You can have slightly longer wires, obviously, if you're poking through. If you're soldering onto pads, you can see, you know, that would be about enough. That's okay, but you know, you wouldn't want more than that. So we're starting off with the ground, and it's going to, looking at our wiring diagram one more time, making sure that we're going into the right one. We're going to ground there. Again, you might want to rest this on a piece of blue tack or something if you want to feel a bit more secure. That's shiny. So I'll go and do the rest of those, and I'll come back when we've got all of this stuff done, because yeah, I mean, it's basically just doing that all the way through. You get the idea, you know. You've just got to, and another thing, you make sure, don't have your iron flipping around all over the place, and you can't burn silicon wires so easily, but some of these wires are actually plastic. They come as plastic, and if it is plastic, you know, and you can sizzle rubber grommets here and motor wires and all kinds of things. So just be careful with your iron. I'm a bit nonchalant with my iron from time to time, but yeah, that's that. And okay, I'll see you when that's all wired up. So we can see, let's have a look at this close up. So we've got, over on the VTX side, we've got the power, ground, then we've got the green is going to the TX, that's your telemetry, and then your video. Okay, refer back to the diagram if you need to. Your receiver is coming up here. You've got going to ground, power, telemetry, channel 1, channel 2, TX, RX. Okay, most important that you get your telemetry from your receiver. And lastly, the camera. You've got your ground, you've got your power, your ground, and your video camera signal. So I'll just wire up to the camera port itself. The only other thing I was going to say is length of wire and routing of the wire cable. Okay, so we can route that just straight over the top of this ESC connector, ESC to flight controller connector. That's fine. This guy's just going to go in there. That's fine. Which way is this going to go? So, you know, many people, they go underneath and around the corners and all kinds of different places. I like to go the line of least resistance, you know, with a nice tight twist for a shield, and get the wires, you know, within reason as short as possible. They don't have to be like super tight. You can have a bit of give on them. But yeah, that's probably the only other thing I'd mention with that. So I'll see you back here when I've wired the rest of these up. And that's it. Let's go and make it look pretty and fit it all together. And I'll be back in a second.